Alrighty, good morning, good morning, good morning. I thought I would talk this morning. It's called The Complexity of Simple Solutions. And this is going to be about how idiotic it is that we're stuck in some type of gender conversation that is leading to this much friction. Because the simple solution is that there is 1,000 other variables connected to either gender before you start blending, that it just doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't. This is the thing. It's like, what are you doing? If you're saying gender, you're participating in some type of analysis where you're analyzing key pieces of information. But that particular one has an importance placed on it that's probably too high, because some of the other factors are way more relevant towards potential downstream changes or phenomenon emerging, if you're following. It's just most of those are not. It is taboo to inquire in polite society. And then we go, right from there, we go, well, polite society, what's that? Aha. Not all of us come from polite society, nor do they realize what that is. As we increase as a nation, we are inviting hospitably, a collection of wonderful people from all different places. But that has increased the complexity and introduces a new variable that it is taboo to inquire within, which is kind of used to be described as class, and now we're trying to live as if we have a classless society, which we don't and we can't. And that's where we get to the problem. The problem is that we're trying to live as if we're in a classless system, being kind of, I think, laughed at by most places that have accepted their class-based system. And then class just becomes like a large conversation. It's like, what is class? It's etiquette and responsibility and stewardship and care and like all these things that within my background, it's like that's reinforced a lot. And so there we go. Gender is gone. This gender presentation that you're all calling LBG, whatever the fuck, that's just kind of my culture evolving. My culture evolving with its historic background, with its like, its inbuilt tensions and all these things. It's not going to apply to different regions that have a different trajectory. And so gender just becomes the only thing we're allowed to talk about because it's on a form. This is what they're all talking about. They're not like, it's just so annoying. It's like, it's a phenomenon that's just stuck. It's a really sticky kind of thing that's just stuck there because it was on forms. I kid you not. We're really at this level of society. We're looking at all these crazy things, but we still live in this like administrative fucking, school Prussian, which was designed for the Prussian military, but hasn't had an update really. And all the updates are just weird, just like inviting more things in. No one's actually looked at the whole thing and said, well, gender's just a thing that they ask in the form. We don't have any records before the form because we didn't ask the question. Do you know what I mean? Let alone 1,000 other variables that might exist just beyond yonder or beyond the gender question, which are probably far more important. Like, what was your family life? What was your interaction with your parents like? What was their culture like? What was their aspirations? All these things. What were you exposed to with sporting, like, education, music, all those things? Kind of like the gender thing seems to be the first step on those questions as to what exactly is shaping us. Is it nature or nurture? But then they're right, gender is a thing because it's on a form. It's just weird. It's like they're not. Yeah, I'd plead with anyone who's on either side to just actually really listen to what they're saying. And it doesn't take away from your thing, it adds to your thing. And then you find yourself as peers in the middle. You're like, huh, we're pretty much trying to do the same thing. We're just getting stuck on these fucking things that are on a form. My case, for example, was like I've been in severe pain with my body for like 10 years. Did have a pretty serious head injury, so that could have caused it, and I drove it. I don't know. It's all like it's an unknown. I'm trying to constantly figure out what that is. Because of my like I'm pretty curious, so I explored from the negative. I was against a lot of this trans stuff. I am against the collectivization of really different kind of groups to bolt, but then it's probably been important, so I'll leave that. But in my case, it's like I know that I'm impartially looking at the evidence. I'm like, because it's just very strange. It's like mostly I would not want to do that. But then I can't ignore the fact that if I let my body do that, it works. If I don't let my body do that, it doesn't work. So for me, it's not even on. And then the pressure, the pain point of it not working is horrific. But then what happens is then I'm like, well, fuck, this is doing this. The pain point of that socially is horrific. So I'm stuck between pain, and I'm not trying to be like I'm actually trying to figure out what's going on, but I know that the gender thing I'm impartial on. Not just impartial, it's like I didn't want to do that. I was like, oh, fuck. But some part of me, I will say definitely did and has always been trying to show me. And this could be, I would say, would have to go on the point that I had particularly a very, very enforced code of masculinity that I was raised under. That's 20 years, different to the majority of my peers. So that's crazy. It's like, so now I end up being, I don't know, like it just keeps going. It's like this point I can never get to because those pressures have been important. So it's like I'm constantly just trying to become more feminine while staying super masculine. And this is what you get. I think weirdly, it's actually probably what it's the Matrix archetype. It's like that is my culture trying to find its middle ground in itself. It's like we know we're responsible for these systems, administrative computers, things, and we're trying to take responsibility for what that means. But we're getting bogged down in these silly metrics that are really just the first point on a form. And you can imagine it's like the questions after that, you'd be like, well, what the fuck's this? Why am I getting questioned? Why am I getting these types of questions? And you'd shut off. So there we go. That's why. The reason it exists on the form is because it was able to get to the form. Because that's how socially reinforced it was. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's, I don't know. Plus, I just gather that this is a funny thing to do with specifically my culture. Like, if people were doing this, they would have just done it. They would have just snuck off. I don't think people had as much interaction. You could just kind of disappear, do something, or you could move towns. Or you could, I don't know, there'd be just a lot more things you could do. And then you might just re-emerge as a different person. And I think that was way easier. And plus, I don't think we had anywhere near as much exposure to other examples. I think that is by far the largest variable that is going on. Like, if we're talking about, like, we're in theory that was made when the major media things were like television and books, magazines, and now we've just been thrust into some new thing that's so much more has so much more aggressively targeted this thing within humans that we have no idea. There's no way to even know. And it's coming from, it's like, this is to like people that are still quite young. It's like, I think this is just starting. Like, I don't think you're going to believe what happens. And I'm not positive, or I'm not pro or against that. In fact, I'm mostly against a lot of the things, but I can't stop them, so I have to accept them. And I'm like, all right, well, this is what this is. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then I have to like slightly do less. I realized instantly this morning, I'm like, I'm just going to pick the best things from each day and do that. I really do feel like we've hit a point. That's how I work. It's like there's certain things. I saw Russell Crowe on Joe Rogan. I'm watching that. It's kind of raining. It's overcast. I'm realizing that, I think a stage of this conflict is over. And I'm taking the foot off the fucking accelerator and I'm letting my body relax because it hasn't relaxed in like a long time. It's just that relaxation now looks feminine and I have to be cool with that. Like I'm like, yep. That's, it's a pretty small price to pay. And I think it does protect me from reliving some of the things that I've seen, which were not good. I think it's really misunderstood the commitment that certain people make to like protect all of us. I don't want to get bogged into it, but it's just a very confronting way to look at humanity and to look at our societies. And it exposes you to some things. It's like you are very protected if you live within the confines of conformity. And that's a truism, whether it's in just day-to-day life, but then you take that into a psychological global military conflict. It's like it is a blanket that is impervious and beautiful, and you should appreciate it, and you should appreciate that by understanding the toll. We're not hopefully going to have these large conflicts, but that doesn't mean that people aren't in conflict. And that's something we've done a very poor job in negotiating globally to do, and domestically to do with all our forces. And it's there on paper, but there's the constant, race to more military power. And I think this last little, let's not call it little, this horrific global conflict has changed things. I think there's going to be more importance placed on the treatment of individuals and the acceptance of these things, and then communication between them, because the wars are not going to be all in soldiers and all in boats and men. It's not going to be that. We're getting to persuasion and disruption. So it's like communication needs to become. We need to figure out how to explain these things to these generations so that it's not lost in out of courtesy. Like if we lose sight of the ball, and so we need to learn how to do that. But yeah, apart from that, I'm going to continue to try and de-stress and relax. But yeah, I think that's a good start. It's like we've got to look at more variables, explain the complexity between this, like the taboo nature of prying and privacy, and if you break it down that way, you can see that it's like, well, if, say, you can imagine Meta going through, or Facebook going through these licensing processes, you know, they're at the form level, they're at the gender level. It's like it was very early on. I'd say that probably was a bit like a snapshot of time and it's like super focused the world's energy onto this question, and then I think asking the question rather than just staying in oblivion, is to pry open the possibilities within the question, because that's what this moment in time has allowed us to do for the first time. We're like, hang on, what is this? What does this say about me? You know, your Facebook became like a billboard rather than, I don't know, just a 1,000 different forms that never coalesced into something you could hold. So yeah, it's a weird, the whole thing's weird. And I did this whole thing basically blind because of these sunglasses are fogged up. I can't really see out of them. And it's going to be interesting to me to see how that reflected. And yeah, I hope I made sense. And now I'm going to try and find the mouse. Oh man, where is it? See, it's these things, like if I just did this, everyone would be like, oh, he's fucked. He's completely fucked. They're funny. They're funny little... Oh, I actually can't find it. There it is. Yeah, that's a funny... The majority of people are at that level where they're like, one tiny little thing seen wrong or is a catastrophe. And we've got mountains of that. That's like our landfill, is that type of thing. That's, yeah, the world doesn't really care. Like, it takes so much to break in, to do something. But also it can also take so little if you want to focus on something small, which is what I would recommend. Like, you could like the ability for someone, I'm going to end this on a positive note, I think. So the opportunities within our regions, like within Australia wide, is like, it's like one kid can sort out that, you know, that all the families in a certain suburb have apples, right? You just make that convenient, figure out the thing, and then do it your way. That's how you do it. Yeah. It's like, and start with, try and develop a conversation with a grower that has ambitions to follow the same ecological model that you have. And what a wonderful job. You know what I mean? To be 25 again, or even younger, to be like 18, 19, and be able to sort out a problem like that, knowing that that's reasonable, it's within your scope. You know that there's this many houses, you have to ask them this many questions, you have to get this percentage to agree to pay you for delivered, you know, beautiful, hopefully organic apples. Yeah, it becomes a wonderful thing. It is a task to be done at that level, and it's going to be this next generation that's going to snap us out of this fucking factory Coles and Woolworths model, which is ridiculous. Even like, so every time there is fixed distribution, it's like, look what it exposes you to, like groupthink coming from your supermarket. That's not enough supermarkets. I think people go, well, how many do we need? 3, 4? And it's like, no, we need to go back to where we had every place had a grocer. You know, because that works way better. And we're inevitably going to infill these suburbs, you know, and probably thank Coles and Woolworths at some point. I'm not saying that they're good guys. I think if they came out and said, listen, we hear what you're saying, but we're the bare minimum. You know, we're providing the necessary backbone, the infrastructure, but there's nothing to stop you all in filling it and doing all this thing, except us. And we do that actively and aggressively. I'd love that'd be an honest Coles and Woolworths ad. You know, we will block your supply chains and corrupt you and fucking thing, but yeah, we will help. And it just becomes, it's just like, no, it's not worth them to do that because the potential to hit back is too large. So, yeah. And then build your own ecosystem of market. I think that's a huge one as well. Build your own ecosystem of economy that is insulated from all this other bullshit. You know, if all the 18, 19 to 27-year-olds get together and go, yeah, we're not playing that game. We're bartering on this level, and we're developing the infrastructure that's going to supersede this fucking monoculture. You'll find that like kids don't need that much stuff that's all that different. And then they'll be tapping into each level of the economy rather than just being expected to slot into this monoculture supply chain of like the big boys. So it's just way better. You'll build skills. If you build your skills for yourself as opposed to trying to like learn someone else's protocol, it's a completely different thing. So start small. Start with something you can do. And just do it. And yeah, don't stress. I don't know. Weird one today. I think the main thing I wanted to say is that about the variables. I'm doing really intense physio. That's it's not just physical pain. It's like it's a pain that is hard to describe. It is, yeah. It's, you know, I tried a lot. Like if I imagine this, because I can see it forming into a feminine shape, and then it works, and then I am relieved in that, and then I can, you know, even have enjoyment within that. And I know in the other shape, I couldn't do any of the things that I wanted to do. I couldn't move in the way that I wanted to move. It's like a type of confinement, and that is like, there's almost like a panic response that's always there. The deeper I get to like overcoming this, like most of the time I've just kept my mind off it, but it's hard to really keep my mind off it now. So I'm like, it's the relief I'm getting is exposing the deep-seated like trauma of being confined. Now I confined myself, and I did it for my family, but I think that's the emotional pain, is like that's like do you know what I have done for you all and how painful it was? And I will say we've never been further away from those two things being further away, and that is sickening. It is absolutely fucking sickening. And I watched it cannibalize its way through men in their 80s all the way down to, still actively like parenting father in his mid 30s, like that. It just vanished. And to put on top of that I was actively working to defend, it's like, that is shocking. That is the most shocking thing. And that won't just be here. That was an emergent phenomenon due to this globalized infrastructure, and it's sickening. It's fucking sickening, and disgraceful, I think. And it is a responsibility that has been dropped. But this is where we get to. Why was it dropped? More than likely because we're at a expansion point of culture, and the culture that I came from was a very insulated, very responsible, stewarding culture, and that is reinforced. That is why I feel the pain. You will not feel the pain if you do not know what isn't there. Now, this makes people from traumatic backgrounds actually more resilient, and that is a terrifying statistic because it makes them more resilient and impervious to the destruction of humanity. So there's a place there where it puts an imperative on them to actually, defeat their so-called enemies, which we would never claim them to be enemies, by destruction. And it's literally like a mathematical certainty that they're going to do that. We need to never forget the importance of civilization and what it actually does bring. And I think the comparison needs to be known. So it's like what I've seen and experienced is just the doorway to what, by absolute certainty, they are trying to usher in. And yeah, you don't want to be anywhere near it. It's fucking, it is a horrific nature. And, I also think that going too far civilized is the same. And so my feet are I have one foot on each side of that river. And I'm trying to create with as much certainty as I can a true vision or a projection for the future that I would like my children to go into, learning from the true reality of what I've been through. And there's no one else that can speak to that. They can speak to their own, hopefully in communion with what I'm saying, but they cannot speak to my experience. And there we go again. There's another variable on gender. It's like the difference between a childless man in the old way of explaining things and a father is almost the same as the difference between a man and a woman. And so that's existing within that one binary that isn't being spoken about. And just keep adding them on there: class, wealth, education, climate, the 1,000 things that you can add onto it. Makes, it exposes how much of a stupid mess this whole argument is. So yeah, that's enough for today. I still haven't sent the Governor General my thing from yesterday about the broadcasting license, but I will get onto it. Thank you.